Welcome to Carpool Conversations, where our goal is to equip parents to have meaningful, Christ-centered conversations with their kids. I'm Amy Lowe.
And I am Sara Jones, and today we're going to be talking with someone who is in the trenches of girls ministry.
Sara, I'm so excited because we have Anna Aaron Harvey here with us. Anna and I, we go way back. We worked Fuge Camps around the same time together many moons ago. We recently got to catch back up with each other, and it was really fun to just reminisce on that time because we both learned so much. We were both camp directors, and we just learned so much about ministry and about leadership. And it was really pivotal moments in both of our lives, opportunities that we cherished, that we got to be a part of. And now here we are, many years later, older, wiser, with families of our own, and still serving in the ministry world. So I just think that's so neat, and we're so glad that you're here with us today, Anna.
Thanks. I'm so glad to be here. This is gonna be fun.
It's gonna be a fun one.
Yes, so we are thrilled to talk with Anna today, and I would actually love to share a little bit about your bio so everyone knows a little bit of who you are. So you are a mom. You're a wife.
Yes.
And Anna is a middle and high school girls minister at Hebron Church in Decula, Georgia. Your husband's name is Chet. He is also in ministry with you as a discipleship pastor, working at the same church. And you have two kids, same birth order as Amy and I, a daughter. So you have a daughter in the 6th grade and a son who is in the 1st grade.
Yep.
I also read in your bio that you find yourself going to lots of basketball games and tennis matches. I don't know.
Late last night.
Do you feel like you could be an Uber driver professionally?
Possibly. Yes. More and more so.
Right?
Every
As
day.
they get more active, I
busy.
know. Yeah. But when you slow down, I hear that you order pizza and play Mario Kart tournaments.
We love it. We love it. We started doing that in the fall. I'm not a party mom. Like, I don't do great birthday parties. They make me just nervous. And so we told my son, you can have a Switch or you can have a birthday party. And so he chose the Switch. And so it's been really fun. It's given us a chance to kind of monitor that whole video game thing for the little guy. And he leads the way, though, when we have the Mario Kart tournament.
Who wins, Anna?
He wins.
He does?
His name is Win, and Win
wins.
He wins.
Every time?
Well,
Anna,
you need to brush up. I've started, when he goes to bed, I really have started playing because Mario Kart makes me smile. Like, it's just, there's nothing.
Nostalgic.
It is wonderful.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. And my husband found Excite Bike on the race lineup the other night, and it's like a souped up version of the old Excite Bike. Yeah. So we have a good time. It's fun. And Win gets to kind of lead the way, like little brother kind of leads the way, and we have to just go along with whatever he chooses with,
It's his thing.
It's his thing.
Yeah.
So it's fun.
We didn't get into
enjoy it.
Mario Kart until the new Mario movie came out.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like, what is this Mario? It took me back to the 80s.
It had great
big
music in
time.
that.
It
had
was super nostalgic.
awesome music.
Yeah.
Take on
We
me.
love it.
My kids love that song now.
Yes.
We've also had Mario Kart tournaments in our house, and a couple of times we've made like brackets and working our way through, especially even during COVID.
Oh, yeah.
We had a lot of those, and it got pretty competitive.
It will.
Pretty fast.
When Big Sister
we had to
loses.
take some breaks. Yeah.
Yes. Breaks are good.
Well, y'all, Anna's just a great person to know. But the reason why we roped you into this today and why we thought it would be neat to have you on this podcast is because you are in the trenches of girls ministry in a local church. You've been in that world for a long time. And we have moms and dads listening with kids of all ages. Some are younger, so they're getting ready for those middle school years. And then we also have moms and dads that, like, their kids are in the student ministry at church in middle school or high school. And for me as a mom, I do have a daughter that's in middle school right now, about to go to high school. And I just don't always know what's going on in the small groups, in the student ministry there, because I'm not, involved in there. I let her go and have her space and her time. We get updates from time to time. We pull information out as we can, and they do a great job of updating us. But I've never like sat down with any of her small group leaders. I don't have a relationship with them. I don't know what they talk about in their small group. And so really I asked you here because I wanted to peek behind the curtain of what's going on in student ministry. And I know you're going to speak from your specific experience, but I have a feeling that a lot of the trends that you're seeing are trends that are happening all across the country, and to just pick your brain about what's going on in student ministry. So I think it'll help parents whose kids are not there yet, because it'll help prep them to be thinking. You're going to give them some great advice, I know. And then also for those that are in the middle of that world, I think we're going to get an inside scoop today from somebody that is in that world, ministering specifically to girls. But you have a viewpoint of the whole student ministry, so I know you'll speak to both boys and girls. So, and we have lots of questions for you. So our first question is pretty broad to kind of kick us off. What trends are you seeing in girls ministry in your church over these past few years?
Yeah. So I think one thing that's just been really important over the last 5 or 6 years to just remember is that it's those of us who grew up in church was probably around the 90s or early 2000s. If you've got kids in middle and high school now, it's important to remember that it's not 1995 anymore, and that student ministry in and of itself, depending on where you live, depending on what your church or your community or culture looks like, it most likely does not look like what it did in the 90s for us. And that was, everybody had a youth group, more or less, and it was an addition to whatever else you were doing. And it was pretty primary, at least in my crowd it was. Yeah. You know, we all had one, whether or not you were there every week, you had one. It was important to be there, and it was formative for everybody. And so it's hard as a parent and as a student leader to even help parents just remember that, because it's not that integral anymore. And our kids sometimes they're 1 in a million if they're little believers running around on their tennis court or in the football field or wherever they are. They really are kind of 1 in a million. Our culture just doesn't work that way anymore. Our culture is busier. And so just to even just imagine the way church works, we almost have to remove what we know and what we expect and what was so good from us. There are parts of what was so good for us that will still be there. There are parts of what was so good for us that will just be different for our kids. It will just be different. And it's been hard for me, and I've seen other parents. It's hard to let go of that, because there was a richness to what we experienced. And there will be a richness to what our children remember and experience. It's just a different richness. And so to be able to trust the Lord with that and kind of let go of it, it's hard. It's hard as a parent. But some of the things I see, I guess, on a daily basis with just our kids and our girls, our church is on the east side so we're all in Georgia. Our church is on the east side of Gwinnett County. And so it used to be a small town, is not a small town anymore. Gwinnett is not a rural county anymore by any means. And so we're all growing by leaps and bounds. But our kids are in our town, in our city, whatever, the kids who used to be, they used to think we can all grow up together. We would go to the same high school, same churches, everybody. They don't any longer. And so the kids in our church will go to school 10 to 15 miles apart, but that means 30 to 45-minute drive, so they see each other Sundays and Wednesdays. And our kids are very diverse culturally. We probably have families from almost every continent in our church.
Wow.
And so even before we moved here in 2020, and we knew Georgia, Atlanta area was very diverse, and we knew that was the same, but to live it is fascinating and just beautiful and amazing. Kids who are bilingual, mom and dad came straight from the Cameroon or came straight from Nigeria or South America. It's incredible. But all of that, we find all of that truly in our student ministry and in their schools as well. So it's just an interesting way that they learn to live with this diversity. And then some of our kids truly live two cultures. They live in American culture at school and they go home and they live right back where mama is like working on Nigerian dinner or Argentinian, it is so diverse. Beautiful, but it makes things tricky for these kids. It gives them different things that they have to navigate in life, because there's mom and dad's expectations that they brought from wherever home was. And then there's American expectations for growing up. And so we've had to kind of navigate that with some of our kids, especially as they graduate and move out of a nuclear home and into college arenas. So a lot of this, the word expectation, though, I would say in the most broad sense, is what our kids navigate on a day-to-day basis. They have strong expectations from coaches, strong expectations from teachers. Everything is so much more competitive than it ever was when we were kids. And so helping them balance that, helping them have just an appropriate picture of what reality can be, of what fun can be. Just like, let's have fun. Let's relax. Let's rest. Let's have fun. Enjoy your friendships. Has been just good for them to remember. So I've done girls ministry specifically in two different aspects. One was back in the late 2000s, and when we were living in Nashville. And so that was 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010. And then I jumped back in at 2020. And so
a little different.
A little different. And so it's the drastic difference is just ramped up in every way. It's relationally, everything is ramped up. And school expectations, the first phone call I got when I started on staff in 2020 was, hey, can you help me? We're having the gender conversation with my daughter. And so it was like, oh, we're not in Kansas anymore. It was such a quick, fast jump. And so it's almost just to trust the Lord enough and take peace in the fact that our kids are dealing with hard things. They hear hard things before we can get to them sometimes. But the Lord is good, and He's gonna walk our kids through this, and He's gonna equip us to do the same thing. So, they really do. They walk neck deep. I feel like they walk neck deep in all of these things, and it can feel so scary to us that we were sheltered.
Yeah,
I was.
Yeah,
and so it can feel scary, but the Lord's got them.
I love two things. You're in a community, a church community that I feel is like a beautiful picture of heaven.
It's just fun.
That is a blast. Mm-hmm. And two, you mentioned God has got us. Yes. We're equipped.
Yes.
In the early days of motherhood, I repeated that to myself over and over. Mm-hmm. Like, I am called, and God has given me every tool that I need to be this child's mother. Mm-hmm. Like, I am equipped. Mm-hmm. I am equipped. Mm-hmm. In Him, I have got the tools I need. Like, I was essentially pumping myself up with, I can do this.
Yes.
I've got this.
Yes. We have to do that.
I know.
Yes.
So anyone listening, just know you've got this. Mm-hmm. If that's you walking right now, like, I don't know if we're going to make it through this season. You will, because you've been called and you're equipped. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And you have exactly the tools you need.
Yes.
To love your kids right where they are. Mm-hmm. Okay. So good. I'm so excited for this. So you work with students ages 6th through 12th grade.
Yes.
Wow.
It's
what a formative age group. I know you've probably seen and heard a lot. You could probably write a book. But I want you to hone in on middle school as a group and then high school as a group so we can hear just some of the distinctions between the two as you see it.
Okay.
That's a loaded question, I know.
Yes. Well, middle school, it's fun. I mean, we changed, and so they changed so fast in all these grades. So middle school, we would say 6th through 8th, and I'm guessing that's a general. Okay, so 6th through 8th is middle school. They changed so much. I mean, they come in and we were talking earlier, they're like babies when they're in the 6th. They're still little girls, really, and they are forced to jump into this big world. So 6th, 7th, and 8th. In my mind, they're all super different. And it's each grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade. And so 6th grade, they are little girls, but they're trying, to adjust and to, with a lot of just the best motivation. They're trying to adjust and they're trying to adapt really quickly to this big world. Kids who, a lot of them may grow up faster than each other. They're all like growing at such different.
Totally.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Yes. And we have to remind in our house, that a lot that, if frustrations or we're confused about why did this happen the way it happened, well, it's like, hey, girls, like, you're growing so fast, but at such different paces. They're just getting used to that idea. Relationships are friendships. So we tried to build into some really healthy friendships, and I'll probably say this again, 4th and 5th grade, that will bridge them into middle school and provide that safe place and soft landing when everybody starts growing at different paces. Well, you do know that you have some sweet friends. And even if they said something that really hurt your feelings or was really thoughtless, she's a good friend. And we know that mama loves Jesus. And we know that you love the same thing. So relationally, they're just really trying to untangle everything without tying too many knots.
Yeah.
13 is funny. It's like a 7th grade is feel like, man, it's the pits, right? So it's just like, let's make it through 7th grade. A friend of mine said the other day, she said, it's just meh all the time. And
Meh.
And it's okay. Like, it's not going to stay that way, but it's just meh. Everything is meh. You know, you never know. And so, 8th grade is fun though, because they do start to get their head about them again. And, and kind of regain some perspective.
Yeah.
If they've lost perspective, 6th and 7th grade they do regain perspective. And it's a really great chance to help them form that perspective too before they really jump in to the deep end in high school. And so, so 8th grade is really this golden moment of like, hey, she's regaining some perspective. Not everything is meh all the time. Y'all can have some really good quality conversation or quality time before you jump in.
Very hopeful.
Mm-hmm. I hope so.
Okay, what about high school,
Okay, high
Anna?
school. They're fun. There's hope.
I'm going to high
There's
school
hope.
registration tonight.
Yes. Are you really?
I'm not prepared.
Godspeed.
But this will help
Bless
me.
you.
I'm going to
I
get more
hope
excited
so.
now.
Okay.
Yeah.
She just said it's fun. It's exciting.
I'm excited now.
It is.
Yeah.
High school is the wildest thing because there are these moments where things click and they look at you like a real human being. And those are hopeful. Those are the moments where you're like, oh, this is fun. And so I get to see more of those things because I'm not mom to them, you know? Like mine is still in the 6th grade. And so I'm that third person. And I'll probably say it again. Like I'm that third person. I hope I'm always bouncing things back to them that mom's already said. So I get to see the sparks and I try to remind moms like, this is what I saw today. This is the conversation we had. But it's hard on the mom side to keep having conversations, keep plugging through. So freshmen are funny. They're almost like you start over, bless them. And so they're sweet, they're formative, they're just trying to figure the whole thing out. Freshman and sophomore year, in my mind, can be a little tricky though, because they are really trying to figure things out. And sometimes it can get worse before it gets better, just the difficult navigating mom-daughter or dad-daughter family relationships navigating, because they really are still working hard. It just navigating everything, everything. Are you going to play varsity? Are you going to play JV? Are you going to take all the AP classes? Are you going to, where do you want to land in all this? I've really, even in just academically, even in just absorbing where they are, have really taken it for granted how much, I would say pressure, but I don't know that every school is pressure, but we didn't have the options that they have. And so to even just know what does dual enrollment even mean? What is that setting you up for? What does honors mean? What does anything mean? They're having to like piece these things together. And it's all putting them in places that will take them certain directions. So for them to not have this fatalistic attitude towards the end goal, or to even know what the end goal is supposed to be, they can get lost in it. And I think that's so hard for freshmen and sophomores. Sometimes we may just need to slow down with them and just spell some things out. Like, like if you choose to do this, well, this might be where it's going to take you. And just to slow down with them and talk those details through is helpful. So if 10th grade gets worse before it gets better, it will get better, because I love to tell moms that something happens this summer of 10th grade year. It's amazing. And when they come back, it's like our promotion Sunday almost. It's like magic. When they come back for their junior year, they look at you like a human being for the first time ever. And they will stand there and have an almost adult-like conversation, and it just blows your mind. It's incredible the way they're growing, and their minds are growing, and their perspective is consistently growing. Their faith is growing, all of it. It's amazing.
What I think I hear you say is middle school is almost like you're pruning, you're planting, you're tending the soil, but then once you get to high school, you get some fruit.
Oh yeah.
It's right.
So great.
Sweet fruit.
It's so great. Yeah, it
what a
really
hope.
is. It is.
Okay.
It's so hopeful. So hang in there until your sophomore summer.
Yeah.
And junior and senior year can, it has its own pressures, but I love watching moms like enjoy those years. Like you want to just soak those last 2 years up anyway.
Yeah, it goes so fast.
There's a lot to enjoy those last couple of years.
And you're really thinking about college at an earlier age than ever. I didn't even think about college until I was a senior.
Right.
I
But
can't
now
imagine.
it's like sophomore, their wheels start turning, and junior, they're traveling.
It kind of goes back to your point. They're experiencing more pressure than ever from all avenues. Yeah.
Yeah, the other night, my daughter came home and she just burst into tears. And she's not really a crier that much, but she burst into tears. And I was like, Claire, what is going on? And it was basically the expectations of they were about to register for high school. And she, all her teachers were being like, you have to do this, you have to do this, and you have to do this. And I'm like, girl, you are going into 9th grade. It is okay. And so I love your advice to slow down because I feel like that's what I felt like we needed to do with her. It's just like, hey, it is okay. If you don't take that class, it will be all right. If you do take this class, it'll be okay. It's totally fine. But I think that expectation thing is real. And I think for me, the aha moment came, Anna, whenever you said that, because it's like we do have expectations for our kids. And sometimes we need to hold firm to that. And I think other times we need to lift our hand back and say, let's just take a beat and realize that they have pressure from a lot of other places that we don't see. And how can I just love them and care for them? And like you said, Sara, cultivate that soil. Because I don't want to add to that pressure if I can help it,
So good.
So I love that so much. Okay. I know as a middle school mom that our girls are worried about a lot of things.
Yes.
And sometimes they tell their church friends and their church leaders more than they will tell us. So again, I'm peeking behind the curtain and getting your help here. What are some of the things you're seeing that these girls are worried about that would be helpful for us as moms and dads to know so that we can help come alongside them?
That's such a big question.
I know, and I know you have a long list.
Yeah, I did. And I'll go fast. Or I really just mention, and we've already talked about the expectations part. And it is real. And we had one teacher even just say this year, she was like, if you do this or if you do this, just realize GPA-wise, they just have to remember, it's all going to just balance out.
Yeah.
And the Lord's will is so good. So we're going to land there. They still just think, and even if they don't say it, they think or they worry. Middle schoolers mostly, thankfully, our girls are relationships, friendships. How is this working? What's this affecting? That has not changed. It hasn't changed at all. It's how do the friendships work together? What is this going to look like next week? What is it going to look like next year? She's choosing to do this, and then I'm choosing to do art. And, so to kind of cultivate the fact that you are who you are unique, helping our girls remember who they are and how the Lord's gifted them at every stage is so good for them, just to remember for a lot of reasons, but their identity is in Christ, and He's created them so uniquely. Doesn't matter what their friends have ended up doing. That's going to pay off in the long run for them to maintain a little bit of that independence in their own, in who the Lord's created them as they make bigger decisions in the future. I've also we've talked a lot about this with our girls, mental health, anxiety, depression, emotions, all of those things. They have access to so much that they hear the words before we've had a chance to even explain to them what these things are. And so you've mentioned your husband's a therapist. And so some schools have really great therapists who are speaking into their worlds and helping them understand what this is and what it's not, and what ADD is and what it's not, what depression is and what it's not. And so sometimes those things swirl around them. And I've heard so many girls just say, I have ADHD and I'm depressed and They kind of tend to self-diagnose a lot without.
They're experts, Anna.
They are. In everything.
Yes.
Because YouTube helps them
the
to
internet.
do that.
Yes, and YouTube.
So it's benefited me to just know what those things are as an adult, to help them walk through that, what it is. But baseline, you guys could speak into this so much more, understanding their emotions. And as moms, it's hard for us to validate their emotions. It just is. It's hard. It's hard. It's hard to do because it's big and it's in your face, and you have to slow down. You have to validate it, acknowledge it. You have to have a conversation. Why do we feel this way? And to help them acknowledge I've heard, so one of my favorite people in the world is Sissy Goff. I mean, my goodness, what a wealth of wisdom. And so I've read everything I can get my hands on, listen to all of it. And she'll say emotions are like a wave, and we have to help our girls remember that. It comes and it peaks and it breaks and it goes again, like it disappears. And so our kids can get caught up in the fact that they feel these big emotions. Is it going to stay that way? It might feel like it's going to stay that way, but it's not. It's going to pass and the situation's going to change. And so is the emotion that comes with it. And so baseline, helping our kids remember and just acknowledge what their emotions are. Like, let's name them. That's another sissy thing that I've thought, oh, brilliant. Name this emotion, figure out what it is, get to the bottom of it, and help them understand that it's going to pass, but that it's validated. I think moms have a power in validating an emotion that we take for granted really often, because that's a really huge point of connection when we just validate an emotion that we see in our girl. It validates her. It helps her just remember she's important.
Yeah.
We see her and she is important. We may have felt the same way. But when we feel like we're losing ground with our girls, that's just such an easy place to gain some ground and just validate that emotion and say,
Empathy.
100% empathy itself. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it is. And there's 1,000 other things that, that they talk about. I mentioned a couple of these on here. When it comes to dating relationships with your older girls, there's some heavy stuff that we've walked through over the last few years. And I would say some of it comes from just being the one that brings the hard stuff to your girls first.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to really bring it to the forefront. Like, you don't know, because we don't know all the conversations. We don't know all the friendships, the relationships. We don't know who they're talking to. We don't know. We all navigate the phone, social thing differently. And that's okay too, but we just can't know everybody they're talking to or developing relationships with. And so for us to just explain to them what the depth of the danger is and some of the things that they're going to experience when it comes to images and how the images affect mindsets and how images affect relational things, and giving them the power to draw their lines.
Yep.
They don't have to be kind and sweet in every situation. Sissy will say, you're kind and you're brave. And that braveness translates, when you're 17, that braveness translates into you draw your lines, And so that has been really a big conversation this last year. Yeah. So.
Wow. Yeah. I think.
Are you ready, Sara? You ready for this?
No. We're kind of coming around some language. My husband says I have to work on my poker face because there will be a time in middle school and high school that my kids come to me and he said, you're so animated with your face and reactionary. They're going to say something that you are going to be dying, that they actually learned this. He was like, but you have got to be cool, calm, and collected. Work on your poker face. And then you are creating the environment for a safe place for discussion. We want to cultivate that in our home. And so
it's so hard.
I'm practicing now. So I look in the mirror.
There you
practice.
Go. Practice on each other.
Yeah. Let's role play.
Okay.
Bring it. I want you to elaborate about their faith. Like, where are these girls in their faith journey? And where can we step in as parents to come alongside them? I love that you listed out some of the things that they're experiencing. And the only thing I could think in my mind was like, but what is truth? What does truth say about depression? And what does truth say about who they are in Christ?
Yeah.
And if God's word can come alongside what the world says they are to fight that, because the father of lies wants to lie to your kids. And I think the word of God in their Bibles, just how are they doing in that faith journey?
Yeah.
Or what are you seeing?
So again, I think we have to remind ourselves it might look different than ours did. It just may look a little different depending, because your kid's going to be different than we are. My daughter's different. She's a different person than I was. But there are things we can do to instill that we can prioritize, what these things are to them. And I think a lot of it has to do with paying attention just to who your kids are and what they're receptive to, and what they're, they're just not going to slow down for sometimes. And so it can be as simple as just making sure that they have the devotions, the Bibles, the resources, the tools, exactly. And there's so many different great tools to choose from that just make sure they have them. And we started doing that in grade school, really. And it kind of, we got a self-motivated girl in our house, so that was easy, but she always had tools. And so when she did slow down, or when she does have a day where she knows, I need this, fill in the blank, or I need to pick up the word, she has something to use to pick up the word with her and on her own. If you've got a kid, though, who's really connected to you, you can do it together. And so that's been really good and important. The older they get, the harder the most simple thing gets, though, is just to prioritize being in a faith family on a Sunday.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just the older they get, the harder it gets. There are just so many different things that just compete with it. Yeah. And so it's just the way it is, the way the world works. But coming over and over year after year, like no matter how many kids we watch graduate from high school, just families that prioritize being with their faith family in church on Sundays for an hour and a half, whatever it is, they know it's a priority. There's so many other things that trickle down under that, that things tend to, I wouldn't say things just tend to fall into place, but that faith journey, it falls into place. That faith journey stays. It's a constant for families who just decide to be with their church family on Sundays. So not to minimize it or to even just water it down at all, but it's a priority that really, really follows through for sure in those faith journeys. We try to in our family, and I told you before, my husband is like our pastor theologian. He's all about the big questions. Let's think about this. Let's dig through the word and see what it says. But we really do try to make sure that they have the freedom to verbalize whatever they need to verbalize, whether that's faith or otherwise, but especially with their faith. And so it can be hard because we don't have all the answers, and the answers can be really big, but just for them to always know you can ask that question and we're going to see what we can figure out together, or we're going to ask whoever we can ask, or we're going to be okay with not knowing and just embrace some of that mystery, because that mystery is good too. And so that's the older they get and the more their brain just develops and their perspective changes, they're going to think bigger. They're going to have bigger questions. And sometimes the little ones have those questions that just wow us, And so just keeping that space open for them to ask those questions and converse about it, dinner table, car, whatever it is. It's just as important as it is about all of the other conversations that we have to have, but just to express that freedom and the poker face. You can't scare me. About nothing you say can scare me.
I'm unfazed by this.
Absolutely.
Bring it.
100%.
I love it. That was so good, Anna. I do agree that just having those consistent
deposits.
Yes,
they are.
Just over and over again, and intentional, specific things that you just do. We're going to go to church on Sunday, and we're going to read our Devo book, and just I think those kind of things are just that'll be what they look back on and remember about their growing up years, is the consistency that they saw in their family, and the priority that it gives them to do that. So
and modeling it for them.
Yeah. Okay, Anna, any other advice? I mean, this is a very broad question, but we're parenting girls and boys in this season of middle school and high school, and you live it, and it's just, you've got parents listening. What advice would you give them for us to be the best parent we can be to help our kids love the Lord,
I would say more than anything is that no matter how hard the days get and no matter how strained you feel like your relationship is, it's not as strained as you probably feel like it is that we as their parents and as their family, we are truly their anchor. And so it's like, that's an obvious thing, but we really are. And we're given this gift of the ability, we can lean into that. And so there are just times where I'll watch moms, and it's warranted. You get frustrated, and it's a day in, a day out. Sometimes it's struggle for weeks, but to lean into the relationship that the Lord has given us, it is in so many ways an anchor for them. It's an anchor for their faith. It's an anchor for their gender identity. It's an anchor for their relationships. It's without us even trying, it's teaching them so many different things. So it's just easy, just like when you get busy, it's easy to just pass on church, every other Sunday or whatever. It's easy to just kind of think, she's growing up. She probably doesn't need me quite as much as she used to. And so there was one mom who I talked to years ago, and I just said, just keep holding the line. just keep holding the line because it will pay off, but you can't let go. And so just don't let go. And that's one of those things that I almost just could get weepy about because we're given a gift and it's so hard to keep holding the line because she's going to push, she's going to individuate, and like push against it. She doesn't want to hold the line. It's our job to hold the line. And so it's just hard. It's just, don't doubt yourself. Don't doubt the relationship that the Lord has given you. Trust the fact that He put you guys together, especially moms and daughters. I know it's coming. I've still got a sweet sixth grader,
Yeah.
I know it's coming.
We talk a lot about the blessing and the boundary, that with boundaries come blessings. And sometimes our girls, our daughters, our middle schoolers, they don't understand kind of like what's happening internally. They feel and look very much adult-like, but their brain is not developed yet. And so they actually do need you, but there's a blessing in the boundary.
There is. And they don't know it yet. They can't see that blessing at all. It's just a boundary,
Mean boundary.
Big old mean boundary.
Yes.
Yeah. And they're just bumping up against it.
Yeah.
It's so hard. So it's just a gift. It's just keep holding the line.
Keep it up.
Yeah. So, let's just keep investing. And, I love to, it used to be easy. I told somebody the other day, I used to love to like look my toddlers in the eye when I would talk to them, and you get so kind of caught up and busy. You just don't think to look them in the eye, like directly when you talk to them. And it's just a really good way to remind them, like, I see you've had a wild day. I've gotten to do work that I probably love and enjoy. And you've had a wild day at school with everybody else. So,
oh yeah, I get down eye level with toddlers daily. Look at mama right here.
I'm here.
This is what's needed. This is the boundary. So I am parenting a younger generation. I think they're alpha is what they're called. So do you have any advice to give us that might be different as we're preparing our younger? I know you've talked about friendship. Gosh, we are living in the friendship. What makes a good friend? What qualities do we want to have in friendship in elementary? But as we're preparing for middle school, for any moms listening with younger ones, do you have any advice that could help set us up for success in the tangled up, is what you called it? Isn't that what you
tangled up? It's like spaghetti.
Yeah.
Yes.
not have knots, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think we just try to use as many opportunities as we can. And I'm learning that it looks different with the girls and the boys. Like those friendships are so different. Girls can start to really have that wild drama, like second and third grade. I don't know if that's, and so those are already such good opportunities to talk about choosing our friends and whose opinion matters and just kind of gleaning from what is already there. And, but it's hard because feelings get hurt real good in third and fourth grade, and to try to figure out how to repair those. This is for sure to help them find those good friends, which means it takes work on our part to find the moms or the families or the teams or wherever that healthy culture is to find it. And to invest in those places, because we don't always, at least our kids don't. We're also spread out wherever in our community. We don't always have neighborhoods full of just really great kids. And some of us do. And that's such a blessing. But sometimes you have to go find the people. And so I think for us as moms to do the work to go find that community for our kids that will kind of set them up for success with some of those healthier friendships with moms and dads who believe the same things, who are teaching the same things, who are walking them in the same direction, just to kind of help them have just a little gimme, like here's a buddy, you've got one or two that are going to stick with you. We all believe the same thing. Nobody's going to walk off the edge. Yeah. It's been really helpful.
Yeah. That was an advice that was given to me when my oldest was like 6 months old.
Wow.
And when my neighbor was selling their house, I said, will you please let me sell your house before you put it on the market? I have a friend. I want to be my neighbor and raise our kids together. And they bought it, and we're doing life. I know.
Wow.
So what a blessing.
Like that. Yeah.
Right? We are just we have a lot of the same values as far as like the way we want to raise our kids to be outside as much as possible.
Yes.
And just loving Jesus. And so I'm really thankful that I don't have to
gift.
I don't have to go far to find it. Yeah.
Yeah. My husband pushed me into the baseball. Like our church has a baseball league. I've never been a baseball mom, didn't do it, but he was like, we're going to find his people if we'll let him play a season. And sure enough, we did.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
it's just tough. I'm still not a baseball mom, but we've got sweet friends. So.
Yeah. Community.
Yeah, it's worth it. It
Yeah.
is. Yes.
Yeah, community is so important. You don't feel as lonely.
And they don't either. They feel that. So, yeah.
Well, speaking of community, Anna, I just want to say thank you for being here with us today. I see you as just coming alongside so many parents in the work that you do, saying the same things to these middle school and high schoolers that we're saying to them. And I don't know if you get thanked enough for the work that you do, but I just want to say thank you for the work that you do. And really all of us should be going to our church community and telling them thank you for the work that they're doing, because they're really, there are cohorts in this, we're all working towards the same end, and we need each other. And so I'm really grateful for the work that you're doing in your community. And I'm grateful for the student ministers and the children's pastors at our church. And I'm sure you are too, Sara. Yes. So very grateful to have a tribe and have a group of people. We always end, Anna, our podcast with a question, because we want to bring this to conversation. And the question we have today is really just around church, to get them talking about what they are learning at church. And so the question is, what are the topics of discussion in your community group at church? I think a lot of times we ask them, what'd you learn at church? Which is a great question. I don't know if I always get the answers that I want from them, but I think it's like, okay, let's reframe it to say, what are y'all talking about in your groups, in your small groups, in your community groups, in your class? What is maybe some of the topics of conversation? So that might come at it at kind of a different angle and see what they say. And I would also just encourage moms and dads to form those relationships with our partners in the local church so that we can just come alongside each other better. It's a reminder for me, for sure, to do that. And we are so grateful that you took the time to listen to this podcast today. And Anna, we're so glad that you came to join us. Thanks for being
having
here.
me. This has
we
been
had so much fun, and we will come at you soon with another podcast. Thanks for listening.